One of the things that we work really hard to try to get One Young World to be distinguished from other conferences and other forums, especially for young leaders, and we think we're at the start, but we think we're on a way to getting this right, is that the One Young World delegates who become One Young World ambassadors are challenged to act. We have a young ambassador who is returning to the summit this year from South Africa, where obviously I'm from, who went back to South Africa and got in touch with the African Union and said that he'd been inspired at One Young World by meeting people like himself from all these other countries, but that Africa was underrepresented because there were only about 13 countries there, and he was concerned to meet other people like himself. He at the time was the president of the Students' Representative Council of the University of Cape Town. And the African Union said, well, we have a remit to bring young leaders from universities together, but we just have never done it. And they gave him funding to set up the African Student Leaders Summit. And he had student leaders from 11 countries and 23 universities with Graça Machel, Nelson Mandela's wife, and the Vice Chancellor of the university there in Cape Town for their first summit. Now, if you know Africa, you would know that Africa's leaders in their brotherhoods, there's been a generational gap, because you had the leaders who were the guerrillas or the political prisoners like Nelson Mandela, Robert Mugabe was a guerrilla, who were really the freedom fighters of the 60s, 70s, 80s, who had a certain bond through experience and they knew one another. But there really hasn't been anything joining African leaders since then. And Africa as a continent has everything. It has land. It has mineral wealth that has not yet been measured, off the chart. A lot of investment there from China for good reason. Africa has mineral wealth. Africa's failure is not even in her crops and her people or her mineral wealth. Africa's failure is a failure of leadership. So for me, the African Student Leaders Summit was one of the most important outcomes of One Young World Summit itself. And I do think in 10 years, 15 years' time, we will see those children changing Africa. And for me, that's a very important and a moving thing. And just the work they've done towards this year, which I think is absolutely fantastic. They've got a delegation of over 100 African delegates from 49 countries. So they've managed to get that spread and get them together. And I'm absolutely confident in the group that we saw last year, there are definitely 2 future heads of their country. And I think we'll have more this year. So that's where you see, and that's not a corporate leadership, but that for me is one of the ones where you go, gee, you know, this is an amazing thing.